Alright guys, in this tutorial what we're going to learn is we're going to learn variables inside your class. Now anything inside your class is called, we just add member to that. So member variables. A variable inside a class is called a member variable. A function inside a class is called a member function. So just keep it that way. So this was a little thing I forgot to tell in the previous tutorial, that you can also call the any function inside a class as a member function and any variable inside your class in a member variable. So I'm gonna build a variable, and this time I'm gonna use private access modifier. Why? You'll definitely know by the end of this tutorial. And I'm gonna set like int ACC, and I'm going to add a semicolon. Now that we have our so before that we need to place these brackets correctly. So this private member function is inside our class. So now that we have our private member variable, now in order to access this variable, because we cannot directly access, we want to access this ACC variable in the main. In order to do that, we need to build two public functions. Now public, and I know I'm not explaining the correct way I used to, but by the end of this tutorial I'm going to explain each and everything, and I'm going to try to clarify each and every confusion. But for now, let's just focus on what I'm typing. So we have our public access specifier, and now we can go ahead and type in a function like void and set name or set ACC in this case. And the parameters it's going to use an integer. Now this function is not returning anything, so it's a void function because it's not returning anything. It's just acting normally. It's not returning any value. And now in the body of this function, what we can do is we are going to set this ACC right here equals x. Now a confusion might occur that why we're using set ACC. We are using this set ACC in order to change this and in order to set the variable equals to x. So ACC equals x. So just focus what I'm trying to type, and I'll clear the confusion of set ACC and get ACC in the end. So now we have our one function completely built, and that function what it's doing is it's just set ACC equals x, and the parameters are int x, or our argument is int x. So we want to pass it in an integer that is x, and this can be called our argument or the value inside our variable. Now we have just named this. We have not actually we don't have any actual value. So in order to do that, we are going to type the value in the main. So before that, we can now go ahead and create a function, a member function, a public member function that gets the variable. So what we do is we type an int and get ACC. So get ACC, and this function is going to take empty parameters, and in the body we can type is return ACC. Don't forget to add the semicolon. Now what's happening over here is we're setting it, and we have this AC acceleration equals to x, and right here this function right here is doing nothing, but it's just returning the value of ACC into function 1. So why this function is not doing anything? Because this function ACC is equals to x, and this function is actually doing some work, but this function is not doing anything. It's just passing this ACC into func1, that is function 1, and all the things are happening over here in this. Now this is a method called setting and getting, or accessing or mutating. Now we're going to discuss accessors and mutators in the future tutorials. Accessors and mutators and setting is getting, it's just the same thing. So this setting and getting, consider it's like a common convention, a programming practice. It's like commenting and documentation. Now you might have created a public variable, but using public variables inside your main directly without having them in private, it's generally a bad programming practice, and programmers don't recommend it. It's because of security flaws, or because you don't want to confuse your customer, or confuse the user. Like if a user is printing anything, a button on the Windows key, or it's just pressing a button, so the user just wants to press the button. The user does not want to like know the functionality or what is actually happening behind the scenes. So I'll promise I'll elaborate a little later, but for now focus on what I'm doing. Now in the int main, what we do is we have our class name. Now in order to run this program, we have our class name, and then we can create an object, and in this case I'm going to ACCOBJ is our object we have created from this class. So ACC object is the object which we have just created. And now what we do is add a semicolon to that. Alright guys, in this variable we're going to study something called member variables. Now what are member variables? Member variables are simply variables inside your class. So to begin with the tutorial, what we have is we have our class, and let's just name that class as cargo truck. Now in this class we have our, in the body of this class we have our one private variable, and in this tutorial, I know in the previous tutorials I explained as I coded as a now with coding I explained. Now in this tutorial I'm going to code all the program, and then in the end I'm going to explain, so that would be much easier for me and for you to understand, because you'll get confused. So just focus on what I'm typing and what I'm saying right now. So we have our private variable, and our private member variable or variable is int ACC and a semicolon at the end. Now we have our private variable. Now to access this variable, what we do is we have our public access specifier, and we're going to create two public functions. In order to access one variable, we need to create two public functions in order to get the variable, in order to set the variable and get the variable. So what do we do in order to set the variable? We just want to type void. In this function we have our simple function. It's not going to return anything, so it's going to be a simple function. So set ACC and then int x, and then in the body we can write as ACC equals x. Now stay with patient, calmly just focus what I'm trying to say. ACC equals x, and by the end of this tutorial I'm going to explain what I have actually done. So int get ACC and empty parameters, and then we can write as return ACC. So what we did was, in order to access this ACC, we built a function to set it, and in order to get the value, we now get. Now I'm actually, if I'm what I'm going to code in the main, so that will clarify things over here. So what was the name of our class? Was cargo truck, and ACC OBJ were just created and a random object, not a random option, an acceleration object that is related to the acceleration functioning of the cargo truck. So ACC obj dot set ACC, and let's just set acceleration to whatever value we like. Let's say the truck has 9 or 10 levels of acceleration, but we want to, in this case, set the acceleration level to 1 and add a semicolon at the end. Now that our acceleration value is set to 1, and in order to see out that value on the status screen, we can go ahead and see out the value or the stage of acceleration. Let's say the value of acceleration is, and then what we do is we type in ACC obj and then a dot separator. Now one thing I want to tell, that this dot separator direct member access operator, this dot separator right here or any other dot separator is called direct member access operator. So remember, if you're in a test or a quiz and if this question comes as the answer is any other word for dot separator, so any other word or the technical term for dot separator is direct member access operator. So remember that in mind. So now that we type this ACC obj and this direct member access operator, we can now and go ahead type get ACC. There we go. Don't forget this semicolon at the end. Now if we just build and run the program, it says the value of acceleration is 1, not in 1. Let's just change this to is 1. Okay, so what we did was I know my program is kind of lengthy, but let's just reduce this space so it becomes easy to understand. Let me just adjust the space over here. Perfect. Okay, perfect. So now be patient, I'm zooming this. What we did was we built 2 functions. I hope you can see it. So I'm gonna explain once zoomed out and once zoomed in. So that would be much easier. So what we did is we have this class named as cargo truck, and we have one private member variable that is int acceleration, and in order to access this variable or to use this variable in the main, what we do is we do this has some housekeeping things. So now you might say that actually using this private variable is prohibited in the main. So you can actually you just have do it like public and then int ACC and then see out that function or variable. Basically what I'm trying to say is we could have put this int ACC in the public and then linked it in the main and run it from the main directly, but that is what I'm stressing in this is that it's actually a bad programming practice. Setting your variables inside public class is generally considered as many vulnerabilities and security flaws come inside your program. Now let's say we have this acceleration function, and then we have a brake function and a clutch function and an engine temperature function and engine and the combustion ratio. We have tons of function in this manless cargo truck world we are trying to make. So definitely what we're doing here is we are building an app. Not right now we're not building an app, we are simulating the usage of cargo truck class. So let's say we have built this program in the Windows and for Windows 10 or the latest Windows, and what we're doing is we're basically controlling this manless cargo truck from our laptop. Now our laptop has this nice little interface that just says acceleration. Now we press the arrow key 1, the truck accelerates, and if we press the arrow key left, the truck steers towards left. Now we don't want to know what happens when we press the button. We just want that action to be performed. We don't want to know that when we pressed 1, the truck was actually our computer was controlling that manless cargo truck from space, and the space computer sent the signal to the computer that is located in the trucks like autopilot feature, and that autopilot feature sends the signal to the engine to take the fresh air and take the fuel and create an explosion and make the pistons move and make the train move, and then finally move the truck towards forward. So we don't want to know all that, what is happening behind the scenes. Actually, we the programmers want to know, but not our basic user want to know. The user just want to press 1 and the truck is moving forward. So in order to do that, what we do is we have tons of built-in functions: open combustion chamber, take freshen air, get a spark from the plug, and then create a combustion, move the drivetrain. So let's say all these functions that a normal user don't want to know are located in your private. And in your public, what you have is we have gathered all those functions into one function. Let's say in this case this x, and we passed it in the main, and let's say we have passed it in this x and then acceleration, and then we passed it in the main, and we just want to have printed out this the value of acceleration as 1. On the status screen of the truck, and in the status screen, now the truck is of course manless, but it has a security guard and all. And by me I mean security guard, I mean it actually has a driver, but actually you, the boss, are controlling it from your laptop, and your employee is sitting in the truck watching the autopilot thing happening. So that is the pretty much a little bit background about your cargo truck program. So again, what we did was we wanted to pass this value. We actually wanted to use this private variable. So what we did was we have this named as ACC, and then we now actually come in the main. I'm going to explain it from the main, so that would be a bit easier. What we did was we want to see out the value of acceleration. The acceleration value was 1, so we created an object from the class, and this object accessed this setACC function from the cargo truck class. This ACC object accessed the setACC function from the cargo class. So keep in mind, now this 1 is passed in over here in the int x, and then this x is equals ACC, and that ACC is equals this get ACC, because return ACC means, or return 1 means, now actually 1 is the value of ACC, so I'm going to say return 1 is equal to this get ACC. Now the value of get ACC is 1, so now that we use get ACC via an object, so the get ACC value was 1. So that's how the journey of 1 begins. It goes right here, then it goes right here, then it was 1 over here, and then 1 over here, and then over here it was 1. So it started all the way from ACC, it took the value 1, and then it passed the value 1 and moved all the way through here, and then finally it printed out over here. So that's how it all began. From here, this is the first step. Let's say this is the, what is happening? Okay, this is our first step. Oh, what are we doing? Consider this as your first step, and this as your last step. Or actually, if you look at from a compiler point of view, and the first step, what you did was you passed it in 1 in the int x ACC, and then ACC, and this ACC was passed into this get ACC, and get ACC, the value of get ACC is actually 1. So if we run the program, the value of acceleration is 1. So basically it's that simple. Now I know you have to, like, this video just confused you a lot. Now your confusion might get a little bit lighter in the future videos. Why? Because if you use this, if you get access to use this setting function and getting the function thing, then actually things might be easier to you in the future. So the setter function and the getter function is just a conventional way of programming practice. The benefits of this setting and getting is that if you if you build real life programs, then it's easier to maintain that programs and to like logging and tracking bugs and a lot of stuff. In the future, let's say you want to maintain that program and change the values easily or change the code, it's definitely easier that way. And it also depends upon what type of program you are building. Let's say you build a program in which this private variable was not necessary, so in that case you use public, and that was actually really fine. So some programmers actually are a little percent, let's say 90% programmers agree with this setting and getting function. In order to use this int ACC, we use set function and get function. 10% of programmers do not agree with this method. So actually this setting and getting function is, again, I'm warning you, this is not a built-in function into a C++. It's just like commenting and documenting in C++. Actually in C#, what they did is they built this setting function and getting function. So remember, if you want any variable to use, what you type is you type in set and then ACC. Now this set is actually for you that things become easier to understand in the future. So definitely a video is a little bit longer, and I'm sorry for that. I tried to reduce my future videos, but actually I want to give this time to you, the new beginner programmers, that you may understand. Now if you don't understand, study this tutorial, study on the internet, study other tutorials, and then you'll finally understand. But I hope by studying this only tutorial, you at least at 10% you get the idea of what is setting and getting and accessing and mutating. Setting and getting, accessing and mutating is just the same thing. So see you guys in the next video, and in the next video I don't know what I'm gonna be covering, but it's definitely gonna be awesome. So I'll catch you guys in the next video. Stay motivated, stay tuned, stay focused, study this tutorial. Bye.